Hello, Parkland High School parents. I hope everybody is staying safe and well during this very challenging time. Today, I wanted to host a mini parent seminar discussing coping skills. A lot of times, people discuss coping skills, and we talk about when we're anxious, like things like reading a book, or watching a movie, or drawing, or sewing, whatever hobby that somebody enjoys. But do you really sit down and think about kind of the science and the thought process behind what we talk about when we say a coping skill? So there are two types of coping skills. There's problem focused coping skills, which is implied in the name. You're basically problem solving a problem to try to make it go away or to change it. Today, we're going to be focusing instead on emotion focused coping skills. Basically, that's a type of stress management that attempts to reduce negative emotional responses that occur due to exposure to stressors. So, that's the nice little scientific part of it. But really, what they're saying is it's how you see a problem, how you approach a problem. It's not pretending like it's not there. It's not making it go away. It's seeing it in a different light. Um, for example, you know, when you approach a problem, if you're like, well, this always happens to me and I can't deal with this, that's a negative emotional response to coping. But if you say, okay, this is a new challenge, life is challenging, I need to approach this problem and I need to emotionally deal with it, that's a positive way. Because what we need to realize, and kids need to realize more because adults really understand this, you can't make stress go away. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. The stressor is going to be present in your life, and the only thing you can do is change the way you view it. So, one of the strategies to that is a concept called reframing. Cognitive reframing allows you to shift the way you see a problem, which can actually make a difference as to whether or not you feel stressed about facing it. You're not tricking yourself out of the stress, you're reframing it to see solutions, to see benefits, to see new perspectives. We're in the middle of a situation like this. We can't control the pandemic. We can't control what's happening as a result of it, but we can choose to see it in a different way, a different perspective. One of the strategies of reframing is learning about thinking patterns, about your thinking patterns, about your children's thinking patterns. The first step in reframing is to educate yourself about some of the negative thinking patterns that cause your stress levels to become worse. See these common cognitive distortions to see which ones, if any, may come into play in your life. So, there's different ways of seeing, pessimistic views, optimistic views. Pessimists tend to experience more stress and less success than optimists. So it's important to understand how you think and work to adopt a positive style of thinking. Educating yourself about thinking patterns and how they affect you is important to laying the groundwork to understanding and change. Okay, so that's really important. Do you see, and some examples, do you see a problem as permanent? Do you see a problem as like this is never go away, this is unchanging, or are you able to see that this too shall pass? That's probably the best example of, stable versus unstable thinking. Are you somebody who makes a catastrophe out of something that's not meant to be that? Now, right now, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. That's very stressful. But smaller problems, do your children tend to make them bigger than what they really are? And that is a great discussion to have. Like, it's not just about, well, think positively. And well, that's not very clear. Talking about someone's thought patterns, talking about how they see a problem, how they approach a problem is really important. Um, you know, another one, do you see the cause of an event as within yourself or outside yourself? If you are having a difficult day and you see it as being your fault, you'll feel more stressed than if you see it as due to other factors other than you. When you're facing conflict with others, seeing the problem as being rooted in something that is their problem rather than your fault can help you take things less personally. Kids constantly take things personally because they have a really hard time seeing outside themselves. So when we're talking about coping skills, it goes way beyond just telling somebody to go read a book or paint a picture. It's also changing the thinking patterns from more negative to positive and moving kids towards that. Another thing is notice your thoughts. Another reframing technique, again, you know, is noticing your thoughts. It's to catch yourself when you're slipping into negative thinking and, stress inducing patterns of thinking. Becoming aware of them is an important part of challenging and ultimately changing them. One thing you can do is become more mindful of your thoughts and catch yourself, argue yourself out of them. I tell many people to stand in front of a mirror and argue yourself out of negative thoughts. Catch yourself. That's how you change that negative thought pattern. This is an active way of coping. Many kids will say, well, coping skills don't work for me. You have to be active in that process and you have to work on changing the thought patterns so those nice coping skills of drawing or painting work. Because if somebody walks into a coping skill saying, well, it's not going to work anyway, which many kids do, of course it's not going to work. So you almost have to work on the thought processes prior to that. So just really get into challenging your thoughts, challenge them. Saying things like examine the truth of them, and if they're accurate. um, are the things you're telling yourself even true? What are some other ways to interpret the same events? Which ways of seeing things serve you better? Instead of seeing the things you always have, challenge every negative thought and see if you can adopt thoughts that fit your situation, but give you a more positive view. So, very important, and replace your thoughts with more positive thoughts. This is hard. When you have a habit of being a pessimist or being negative, which many kids with anxiety and depression have, that kind of point of view, this is not easy. It sounds very simplified in what I'm saying, but it's not. It's a process. And it's something that you as a family can work together as your communication patterns and even catch yourself being, whether you're negative or not, that kind of gets modeled. I know that years ago, I tended to be more of a pessimist. So I did not want my kids to be that way. So I had to work on not seeing everything negatively. So, and it's very challenging when you've kind of been raised to think that way. It's difficult to change. So these are really great dinner time conversations. If you have any questions or you'd like me to call you, my email is fitchl@parklandsd.org. Please reach out. Hopefully this helps and gives some dinner time conversation. Take care, Parkland families. Stay well.